Well, you know the UFC has done what it does to bolster this here UFC 303. Welcome in another UFC 303 betting preview presented by DraftKings. We got the future Hall of Famer, Henry Cejudo. MMA sharp Nick Kalikas is with us. I'm excited to talk to you boys. We already got boots on the ground in Las Vegas. Quick turn from Saudi Arabia. I always enjoy this exercise with you folks. And Henry, you know, we were talking a little bit before Nick arrived in terms of just the magnitude of these UFC pay-per-views. And you've been there and done that and won title fights. As far as I'm concerned, we have the NFL Super Bowl and then these 13 or 14 UFC pay-per-views. Like, there's truly nothing like these pay-per-view fight weeks for me. And I know for fight fans around the world, and we got a big one upon us here, International Fight Week 2024.
Yeah, and I tell you what, John, I mean, the UFC 303, this is what the UFC tends to do. It tends to be like, oh, they're probably going to cancel the pay-per-view event. If anything, the pay-per-view event gets a little hotter. And I love the fact that they threw in Potan versus Yuri Prochazka. You know, we got to go back and think about this fight and how is it that it actually happened and how is it that Potan was able to knock him out and get rid of him. But at the same time, you have to go back and think of that first round. What if Yuri doesn't make that mistake of holding on to that leg a little too much? I mean, could he have gone to use the rhythm, the patterns, the distance game to really switch it up on a guy like Yuri, to switch it up on a guy like Alex Pereira? So I'm interested. I'm more excited to see this part two than the initial fight, John.
Yeah, no, and I think fan sentiment would align with that. And it's happening, I think, more expeditiously than a lot of people would have thought. They met for the first time last November. Nick, obviously, you're embedded in this UFC world, and you probably weren't surprised to see them pivot quickly and maybe make this card even deeper than it was prior, even without the presence of one Conor McGregor.
Yeah, you know, I mean, sometimes, of course, all of us want to see Conor. We want to see if he still has it. There's a lot of question marks surrounding Conor McGregor and, of course, the superstardom that he brings everything to the table. So always awesome to see Conor there. But he pulls out this, exactly what Henry said. This event got better. I mean, Pereira versus Yuri, the rematch, the first fight was so competitive, so close. Questionable stoppage as well. So I really believe, especially what we've seen from Yuri at his last fight, dude, that guy was a monster. I mean, he couldn't be stopped. His will to win was unmatched, I think. And that's what he's going to bring to the table here. He's a former champion. He's hungry. This is an awesome fight. And the card did get deeper because when you take out Conor McGregor, you have to kind of make up for it a little bit, right? So they did slot in some great fights. Diego Lopez versus Ortega. Holy smokes, man. That's going to be a scrap as well.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in short order. DraftKings betting preview for UFC 303 brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets instantly with a $5 minimum deposit. Download the app, use code UFC and claim your $150 in bonus bets now. All right, here we go. We're going to pick your brains on this main event for UFC 303. Alex Pereira, minus 162, the betting favorite at present. Yuri Prochazka, plus 136. Seems like the overwhelming majority of the money is coming in on the Brazilian Alex Pereira. 87% of the money in play, 83% of the wagers. Initial thoughts, Henry, before I get to Nick, on Alex Pereira being the minus 162 or so betting favorite as we sit here during fight week.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Like, I tell you what, these fight fans are getting a lot more educated because that's kind of how I see it. Even though I do see Alex Pereira being a favorite in this fight, it's not by a lot, and particularly obviously getting knocked out. And I think Nick hit the nail on the head. Look at Yuri's last fight. I mean, talk about a guy that has a willpower, a demeanor that he has the, and I typically don't like to compliment people, but he has the ability to take pain and then come back and stop people. I mean, he gets hit left and right. I mean, do you want to call him chinny? I wouldn't go to that extent. I think if anything, there's a certain willpower to him, but I am not surprised, but I'm surprised that the fight fans and the people who are placing their bets are seeing it that way. Because you have to keep in mind, though, too, that Yuri Prochazka really wants a piece of this guy. And at the same time, guys, Alex Pereira's got to cut 20 pounds. Alex Pereira's the last-minute replacement. Is he going to be ready for a guy that I know pretty much well with Yuri Prochazka? The dude trains year-round, whether he has a fight or not. He's a real modern-day gladiator.
Fight is happening at an interesting time, Nick, for Alex Pereira, because Alex Pereira is that guy, hardest worker in the gym all the time, but he was seemingly in Australia at the time, and maybe there's a broken toe or two. Both guys gamers, though, right? I mean, the lion's share of the credit for stepping up here has gone to Alex Pereira. Yuri Prochazka deserves credit, too, even though he trains year-round. Both competed at UFC 300 not all that long ago, big wins, and now they align again. Nick, in your expert opinion, without sort of giving away your hand, do you feel like the Yuri Prochazka money is going to show? It seems like Henry feels like he's got a good opportunity to even this series here this weekend.
Yeah, I do think it's going to show. And let's not forget, against Jamal Hill, Pereira was a favorite, similar kind of pricing range, but then the money started coming in from sharp action on fight day on the Jamal Hill side. Again, I understand it didn't work out that great. Look at it, the sharp action did not end up winning because Hill got knocked out like he did. But I'm kind of comparing the two. And I think if there's going to be sharp money on Hill, there's going to be sharp money on Prochazka coming in late as well. But the early money will continue to be on the Pereira side. I think that's where all the public bettors are going to go. And of course, you're going to get some sharp action there. Look, the guy looked amazing. I mean, to go out there and do what he did to Jamal Hill, and then actually the finish and the way he just kind of ended things there. That's fresh in people's minds. Yes, exactly. So this guy is a monster. This guy right now, the hype around Pereira is on a different level. So I think automatically people see his name and see that short price. They're going to kind of migrate to him at the betting window. But it might not be right, man. Look, Zed, I would actually think it would be higher than it is now, according to the public. But it's actually a tight competitive line with all the hype and respect that Pereira is getting. So that tells you what the bettors and the odds makers overall think about this fight. Prochazka definitely has a shot to win this one.
Henry, first meeting, Yuri Prochazka took round one on all three judges' scorecards. As you've done your deep dive, as you usually do on fights of this magnitude, what are your thoughts on that first meeting and how it might play into this second meeting come this weekend?
Yeah, I do believe that with Yuri right now, the fact that he's already been out there and he got knocked out by Alex Pereira, it was one mistake that he had to do. He stayed on that leg a little too much. But I feel like the biggest thing that he does is very problematic. So I've gone with him, just kind of messing with Yuri. Obviously, he's a lot bigger, but it's his rhythm. It's his rhythm that tends to throw people off. He's his irregular striking from different angles and alongside with obviously being aggressive. So I feel like a lot of the adjustments that really need to take place is like I think he continues to fight the way he fights. You just cannot hold position. If you're in a position and if you're not finishing, do not stay there. And that goes for the clinch. That goes for going for takedowns. Because I tell you what, guys, Yuri is going to go in there. He is going to chase the takedown. But you cannot stay in those positions no longer than 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah. Nick, we love to put you on the spot, so I'm not going to do it now, but right now, any action to this point in time, and what do you think will be your ticket load this weekend when it comes to the main event at UFC 303?
For me, it's only one bet to make. I got to take the Prochazka side of things. I mean, I'm getting plus money in a competitive fight. Both these guys are world champions. We know that. So for me, again, the sharp money will come in on the Prochazka side. I think you have to chase the plus money. That's the only way to bet this fight. Even though Pereira has been amazing, it's hard to lay chalk against two quality fighters like this. So I think it's a dog or pass situation. I would wait and see where the line goes because I'm telling you, there's probably going to be a little bit of a climb here because the public action will favor Pereira. I know it for a fact. So I would wait, maybe put a little bit down now, see where the line goes, and then put the rest down later.
Sage advice, and I absolutely love the conviction, especially on the underdog side in the main event. We will have more on Pereira v. Prochazka 2 later when we get to Triple C's 3 keys, potentially to victory on either side. All right, co-main event. And man, does this not speak to just the UFC's ability to get elite athletes to step up. And really, the fighters deserve the credit. But Diego Lopez, minus 142, taking on the former world title challenger, Brian Ortega, plus 120. Fascinating fight, Henry. I get excited just talking about it. T-City, hasn't been all that active over the last half decade or so, right? So to get him twice in a year is very exciting. Diego Lopez, all the rage with 3 first-round finishes to vault into featherweight title contention. Not a lot of preamble leading up to this fight. You can give us a prediction or not, Henry, but I'll start with you. Your thoughts on what could just be an epic co-main event for as long as it lasts.
No, first of all, I feel like the UFC really, they really, went beyond what I was they're actually going to do. Because one, it's a Rocky Balboa story. Yeah, Diego Lopez does have a lot of fights, but fairly new to the UFC, and he's fighting the number 3 contender in the world, and and Brian Ortega. I mean, could this kid be in line with the victory over somebody like Brian Ortega? Could he be in line for the next title shot, John? I mean, this kid, when you're beloved by the fans and by the UFC and by the people, I mean, he could potentially be a one fight away from fighting for the title. But that being said, he's going up against Brian Ortega, somebody that has fought Max Holloway, somebody that has fought, Alexander Volkanovski, somebody that has beaten the top contender in Yair Rodriguez, and not just that, but obviously his jiu-jitsu. I mean, talk about when you have high level jiu-jitsu versus high level jiu-jitsu. It's really going to come down to the feet, and it's going to come down to top control and wrestling. But I'm looking at this fight overall, and I just feel like right now I love Diego Lopez, but could he get past also the experience and the woodiness of a guy like Brian Ortega? But that being said, I'm going to have to give the edge to T-City Brian Ortega. I just feel like his composure, the fact that he just beat a high level guy like Gary Rodriguez. It seems like he's reamped his spirit to fighting.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to put it. And by the way, we don't have fence sitters here on the betting preview show, right? These guys make predictions. So, Nick, as it stands right now, just 22% of the betting handles on Brian Ortega on DraftKings Sportsbook. Diego Lopez propagating 72% of the money line bets and 78% of the money. He's been an oncoming force. There's no doubt about it. Don, I know your take on this co-main event, brother.
Love what Cejudo said. I agree completely, man. 100%. Look, should Lopez be favored over Ortega in this spot? No, he shouldn't be favored in this spot. Look, I love Lopez. The guy is a stud. We see if these finishes that he's getting is not a fluke. The guy continues to get better. He's training at a good camp. He's got everything going for him, man. The looks, the stardom, everything. He's getting a push right now, but it might be too much too soon. Look at the action. Look at the handle that you're talking about right now at DraftKings. That's ridiculous. Ortega's been in there with the best of you guys, as you guys have said. He's got world-class jiu-jitsu to the point where he can practically finish anybody, anytime with the jiu-jitsu game. And Lopez has jiu-jitsu in his own right, so that's going to be an interesting battle. But again, you're telling me with Ortega's experience, what he's been through there, the confidence right now coming into this fight for him, he's got to have a little chip on his shoulder too, thinking Lopez is favored over me. Okay, I'll see how this one works out. Again, I'm expecting an all-out war. I just don't think that Lopez is quite ready for this jump, at least to be a favorite in this spot. So for me, again, I agree with Cejudo. I think it's Ortega's fight to win or lose. I think if there is top control here, it's probably Ortega. I think he does have better wrestling. Now, again, not easy to keep a guy like Lopez down with all the scrambling ability, all that stuff. But you can check off a lot of boxes for Ortega in this fight. And you can argue that he should be favored.
Nicely done there. I could spend all day on this fight. Henry, we do have to get to the main card opener in a minute, but I just want to say, if I could quickly, in terms of maybe these 4 athletes at the top of the card not having what amounts to a total training camp, I don't know how you factor that into the fight or a handicap if you're a bettor, but we know that none of these guys had a training camp. A lot of these guys are the type that live in the gym, but for you, right, taking a high stakes, huge fight like this without a full training camp, I mean, how does that factor in?
Yeah, first of all, I would never do that, John. I'm too. I love to prepare. I believe that your preparation is everything. So I've never really necessarily been in that situations, but when you get guys that are last minute replacements or there's a big fight coming up, I mean, typically the reason why sometimes a lot of these late replacements tend to win is because they take more risk. Because they know that, hey, it's all or nothing. This is do or die. So we're looking at 2 potential men that may go in there, and we may see a quick fight. We'll see a quick fight on Alex's side or with the guy. And not saying that Alex Pereira doesn't train, but he does a lot of appearances. He works with the UFC. I mean, I constantly see him at UFC events, but with the guy like Yuri Prochazka. I know Yuri, and I know Yuri will eat, sleep, train. Like he literally trains in his sleep. So
Right.
I think more importantly, we're going to be seeing a guy like Alex Pereira go out and actually take more risks.
And it seems like Brian Ortega was maybe talking to the UFC about a date in September. Noche UFC 306, a move up to 155 pounds. So we'll see what happens. But just absolute dogs, all four of them atop this card. All right, Nick Kalikas, I'm going to start with you on the main card opener. Ian Machado Gary, minus 130. Michael Venom Page, plus 110. Huge fight at welterweight. The price is held steady. What do you have for us on this one?
Dude, I almost can't believe that this fight got matched. Incredible. I mean, talk about a striker's dream. I mean, you have two of the best strikers in the world matched up here. Again, for Machado Gary to take this fight is kind of a question mark because a lot of people might not know Venom Page and how good he is and what he brings to the table here, but this guy is legit. So ultimate test for both sides of it. But you know what? This is a spot where I think you're buying short here. You got the younger, the hungrier fighter, Ian Machado Gary. The guy looks the part. I think he's a more well-rounded fighter here. So if you're only laying 130, this is a spot where you take the favorite here. It's a favorite or pass situation, not a dog or pass situation. Because again, on the feet, it's going to be very interesting for sure. Both these guys are capable of outpointing each other. Both these guys are capable of doing damage back and forth, but it's the rest of the game that Machado Gary brings to the table that I think will make an impact in this fight. So for me, you lay the chalk here. It's Machado Gary's for me, personally.
Henry Ian Machado Gary, undefeated overall, 7-0 in the UFC. Strength of schedule, I think he has the advantage.
Oh, boy.
You're dropping some dust on us. What do you got there?
God, Nick, you're too good. And you know what? This is the thing. I will say this. Michael Venom Page is coming with a whole new style, with a whole new theatrics on how he likes to call people in. But you're going up against a guy that likes to kick. You're going up against a guy that will literally, that's a little younger than you, and that's producing power off of his leg kicks. And not just that, with Ian Gary is Ian Gary knows that he's actually got so much better since the first time I saw him fight at MSG, from him getting hit a lot to him creating more angles. I just feel like he has a proper training partners, and particularly going out to shoot boxing out in Sao Paulo. And I'm sure there's a lot of mimicking going on. But the keys for a guy like Ian Gary is going to be kicking that lead leg. You know, we saw Michael Venom Page in the past. The way he's lost to Lima back in the day was from getting leg kicked and eventually bringing things in. And I do feel like the youth side of Ian Gary is going to be very problematic. So I'm favoring Ian Gary.
All right, Michael Venom Page.
I thought he was going to go with Venom Page.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Even though, John, I love doing this, John. I'm like,
that's good. That's good.
There we go. A little curveball thrown at us there for a second.
It's scary. It's scary looking at it. What's he gonna do?
Hey, there's a reason in our 3-wide triple box here that you're in the middle, Henry. Okay, there's a reason you're in the middle. All right, UFC 303 betting preview presented by DraftKings. Jon Anik alongside Nick Kalikas and the future UFC Hall of Famer Henry Cejudo. So I would like to circle back to the main event if I could and get Triple C's 3 keys to victory or otherwise, Henry. And then, Nick, I'm going to stall here for you a minute because I'm going to see on the back end, Nick, if you have anything resembling a best bet for us. So just want you to be able to marinate on that for a little bit. Without further delay, Henry Cejudo, UFC 303, championship rematch for the light heavyweight title. Your 3 keys.
The 3 keys to Yuri Prochazka is going to be his movement, his distance recognition, like him being problematic. Yuri being Yuri. Number 2 is going to have to be him really closing the distance. You're going to have to stay away from that hook, and you're going to have to stay away from that leg kick. So I just feel like if Yuri is able to hit him with the movements, take away the space, and eventually bring in and use the takedowns. Yuri Prochazka has great timing on the takedowns, but he cannot stay in these positions no longer than maybe 4 seconds, whether it's the clinch or trying to take this guy down, because Alex Pereira, there's one thing that he does produce, and it's called crazy Francis Ngannou power. But I'm talking about Alex Pereira right now. Alex Pereira, he needs to be himself. He needs to be Shama. He needs to really cut Yuri off, because Yuri's breaking the movement. How can I do a really good job of cutting Yuri off and eventually finding those kicks and finding eventually that beautiful left hook of his? So number 1 is going to be covering distance, really cutting him off for Alex Pereira? And then 2, could I defend him off to takedowns? And then 3, if I can defend him off to takedowns, then you know what? I'm going to have to be conditioned. How good is his condition? How good is he for 5 rounds, Jon Anik?
I guess we'll find out. The questions give way to answers as we close out International Fight Week 2024 with UFC 303. All right, Nick Kalikas, somebody gives you $1,000. They allow you to place one straight wager for UFC 303. Where are you putting your coin?
Man, that's not ever easy for one bet, but you know what? We'll go outside of the box.
You do whatever you want. I mean, you're the resident expert in the building. You do whatever you goddamn well please.
We'll go outside the box a little bit. Let's go to the prelims with Watterson versus Robertson, that fight. I mean, it's going to be an interesting scrap. Jillian Robertson right now is the favorite. She's around $170 or so. I think the Michelle Watterson-Gomez side of things, she's the better striker. Her grappling can hang. Even though Jillian Robertson has outstanding grappling, she gets the fight to the ground more times than not. She wins the fight. Well, here it's an interesting problem because Watterson is not a fish out of water on the ground. She's getting physically stronger. She's the more experienced fighter here. So I think if you're getting around plus 140-ish, which that's a price right now at DraftKings, you got to take a stab at the underdog. So go with Michelle Watterson-Gomez. The Karate Hottie gets it done, I think, this weekend at the plus money price.
All right, Nick, we appreciate you hitting the curveball there. And Henry Cejudo, I'm going off script here, but because we have you in 30 seconds, when are we going to see you back in the octagon? Is there a desired opponent? You know, you can call a lot of shots with a resume like you have.
Of course, man. Everybody now that I'm 0-2, John, everybody wants a piece of the Triple C. Everybody feels like, you know what, he's on his way out. But that being said, I would love to fight Peter Yan. I think there's two former bantamweight champions of the world at one point we were supposed to meet prior to me retiring, prior to me getting sick of the sport. But I just feel like the best fight for me right now that the UFC fans would really want. His name is Peter the Ugly Potato Yan. I want a piece of you, sucker.
Makes a lot of sense.
That's a great
Makes
fight.
a lot of sense.
That is
you like it, John? You like it, John?
I hope I get the assignment. That's all I can say. And it sounds like a fight of that magnitude, Joe Rogan would be there. So that's a good sign for me. All right. Thank you all for indulging us and being here for these betting previews, especially for one as explosive and just high magnitude as UFC 303. Don't forget to check out the DK Sportsbook social tab on the way out. You can create groups with friends and see who is having the best night at UFC 303 in real time. Maybe talk a little trash along the way if you are so inclined. Thank you to our producer, Cody Merrow. Thanks to Jeff Gales and everybody at DraftKings. Amanda on the UFC side for Triple C, Henry Cejudo, and all the cuteness there. And Nick Kalikas. Jon Anik signing off from Las Vegas. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you in advance of the next pay-per-view. Enjoy UFC 303 this week.